Hi, my name's Matt. I'm a teacher here at CMEO Retrack. Welcome to another English learning video. Today we're going to be talking about jobs, some vocabulary and some grammar and some questions that you can ask in conversation. So when we talk about our jobs, there are normally 3 questions we can ask. The most simple is, what's your job? What is your job? Slightly more complicated, but more normal, is for us to say, what do you do? What do you do? Now, it sounds like a strange question. What do you do? Well, I do lots of things. I eat, I sleep, I drink, I think. But when we ask the question, what do you do? We mean, what do you do every day? i.e., what do you do for your job? So let's practice those again. What's your job? What do you do? Now, you probably know a lot of vocabulary for jobs already. Simple words like teacher, a doctor, a banker, a farmer, or an engineer. But let's look at some more vocabulary together today. Now, when I ask my students, what do you do, when I first meet them, often they say one of 2 things. They might say they are a worker, or they might say they are an officer. But that's not quite right. Let's think about it for a minute. I am a teacher. I teach. A banker banks. A farmer farms the land. So what does a worker do? A worker works. So when you say, I am a worker, that just means I have a job. Well done, you have a job. I'm very happy for you. It can also mean ant, or be a worker, a little ant that works. There are some jobs where we do use the word worker, but we need some more information. For example, a construction worker is somebody who works on a building site, a construction site. Or if you have to call a company, you normally speak to someone in a call center worker. Those are some types of workers. As for officer, office isn't quite right either. There are 2 types of officers that I can think of. First, a police officer. Hopefully you don't see them too often. And also an army officer, somebody who is in the military. So officer is not right and worker is not quite right. But I know what you mean. You want to say, I work in an office. So the simplest way to say that is, I work in an office. Or you can call yourself an office worker. And that brings me on to question number 3. Question number 3 is, where do you work? Where do you work? And we can answer this in a number of different ways. I can think about the place I work. I'm a teacher. I work in a school. Or I can think about the company I work for. I'm a teacher. I work for CMEO Retrack. So if I want to talk about the place, I would use in. If I want to talk about the company, I would use the preposition for. However, to make it slightly easier, you can use the preposition at for both of these things. I can say I work at a school, or I can say I work at CMEO Retrack. So, what's your job? What do you do? Where do you work? Let's think about some more vocabulary, maybe some jobs that you haven't heard of before, or maybe you didn't know the English word for. Now, maybe your job is to work with money, but not your money, other people's money. If you work in a bank, you are a banker. But if you work for a company and you are in charge of the money, you are an accountant. Accountant. Maybe you're not a construction worker, you don't build the buildings, you design the buildings. We call somebody who designs buildings an architect. An architect. Somebody who we all love to go and see, I'm sure, is our mechanic. Mechanic. When you have a problem with your car, or in Ho Chi Minh, more likely your motorbike or scooter, you need a good mechanic. Someone we definitely don't like to see, the doctor for our teeth, a dentist. A dentist. Now, here's another type of office worker for you. People who work in an office, but who help with the computers. We could call them a specialist, an IT specialist. Specialist means that you have a special job in your company, an IT specialist. The first person you meet when you go into a company usually is the receptionist. Receptionist. Receptionist comes from the verb to receive, and they are the people who welcome guests into a building at a company or at a hotel. Usually they answer the phones, they greet people, and etc. Another type of receptionist, but who works for just one person and does more, we would call a PA, or a personal assistant. If you have a big, well-paid, important job, usually you might have a personal assistant who takes care of your diary. An example of someone who might have a personal assistant is a lawyer. A lawyer. Now that's a difficult word to spell and a difficult word to say. Lawyer. Hopefully you don't need to see a lawyer too often. So, we've talked about what we do. We've learned some vocabulary for jobs, and we've talked about where we work. Let's talk a little bit about responsibilities. Responsibilities. When we talk about responsibilities, we usually use the modal verb have to. Have to means the same as need to, or it is necessary. So, for example, as a teacher, I have to wear smart clothes. I don't have to lift heavy objects. So I have to wear smart clothes. I don't have to lift heavy objects. So, what do you have to do in your job? Do you have to get up early? Do you have to wear smart clothes? Put something down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.